What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel. There hasn't been much to cover. Expect weekly content coming. As far as NFL goes, there hasn't been much to talk about. It's kind of that point in the off season, right before the season starts, where things are a little slow. Not too much news circulating around teams, especially local teams around here, Giants, Jets. But we got a big event coming up this week. We got UFC 264 on July 10th. Big fight. We got Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier 3, the Trilogy. And it's definitely a high stakes fight. It's a fight that's going to determine a lot for both guys' legacies, especially Conor McGregor. He's got that aura, that magical feel around him when you watch a McGregor fight, a press conference, whatever it may be. That a lot of that could be gone if he loses again. It's not, people may not take him as serious. So there's a lot riding on that one. I went back and I looked into both fights, the first and second one. I saw both of them. And something that stood out for me right away is Conor McGregor just looked like a completely different fighter. If you watch the first fight, the amount of leg kicks he throws in comparison to the second fight is insane. Well, he throws no leg kicks, in fact, in the second fight. I don't know if he did throw one in the second round. I believe he threw one, but in the first round, I do not know if Conor McGregor threw any leg kick at all, not one. Compare that to the first fight, where his first 4 shots were leg kicks in the first fight. So that's kind of mind blowing to think about. And it wasn't just those first 4 shots. He threw a flurry of kicks to the body, to the head, spinning kicks, head kicks, hook kicks. I think he opened up the fight with a hook kick. He threw a variety of different leg kicks at Poirier. That opened up the boxing for him, and he landed bigger shots far quicker in the first fight. He just looked a lot more explosive, a lot more lucid in his movement. His movement was a lot better in the first fight. He looked so much stiffer in the second fight. He had that boxing stance. And in the second fight, like I said, he threw no leg kicks. But he was really just focused on boxing. Just so much different from the first fight. And it's funny because if you look at Dustin Poirier in that first fight and the second fight, well, we know in the second fight he threw the calf kick. And that was the beginning of the end for McGregor, right? The calf kick, that's really what messed him up. That's what, led to the knockout, really. Dustin Poirier was doing the same thing in the first fight. If you go back and check, he was throwing that calf kick. The same thing. He was throwing the inside calf kick outside with the left leg, with the right leg. He was mixing it up. Same thing as the second fight. He did it in the first fight as well. He was doing the same thing. And he was landing shots in the boxing. Conor was just landing a far higher number of shots in the boxing than Poirier was, but albeit Poirier was landing some shots, which was also very similar to the second fight. It's really tough to compare. I mean, you could use the first fight. I mean, you could use the second fight rather as a comparison for this upcoming fight. You could use it to, maybe predict some things, but I don't think it's fair to use that first fight. Look how much Conor's changed, for example. It's not fair to use the first fight. It was back in 2014. These guys are completely different fighters now. The amount of ups and downs Dustin Poirier has been through in his career since 2014. Conor McGregor went to another sport. He went to boxing and then came back to UFC, albeit it was one fight, but he still, came back, and he's been scheduled to even box Manny Pacquiao. So he's been diving into other worlds of combat sports. He hasn't just been focused on mixed martial arts. So definitely a different fighter as well, for the better or for the worse. If you look at what Dustin Poirier was doing, it was very similar in both fights. It's something that it's going to be tough for Conor to figure out. I think Conor's definitely going to have to start throwing more leg kicks in the third fight in the Trilogy, because like we said, he threw nothing in the second. He threw absolutely no leg kicks. Like, one thing is having a kick heavy approach in your attack, right? You got guys that do that. John Jones does that a lot. Israel Adesanya does that a lot. Those guys throw a lot of kicks. Those guys tend to throw more kicks than punches. Like they use those lead kicks as their jab almost. If you look at Conor McGregor, he threw nothing. At least mix it up a little bit. It's not that it was predictable because he's so fast and he's so accurate, but Poirier almost knew what to expect. He did it, and he did get caught a lot. And if you watch that second fight, go back and watch it. So let's start in that first round. Fight starts off, Conor McGregor goes right to the center of the octagon as he usually does. He goes over the top with a 1-2 right away. I believe he lands a left or a right hand in that exchange. And just right away, he came out of the gates just quick, ready to go. And he was saying in the lead up to that second fight, he was saying, I'm expecting a knockout within 60 seconds, if you guys remember back to the build up of the second fight. And it looked like he really wanted that. And he came out firing out of the gates, got to the center of the octagon, and landed a shot right away. And it was looking like, oh, okay, here we go. But Dustin Poirier kind of weathered that storm a little bit. He's a far different fighter now, a far better fighter, way more experienced than he was in that first fight to let things get to him like that. Conor was winning the boxing exchanges, and Poirier was just, casually throwing in those leg kicks, the calf kicks rather, inside calf kick, outside. They had a clinch exchange. Poirier took him down early in the fight. Conor popped right back up. I would think that Conor was winning the clinching exchanges. He was landing some elbows over the top. He was hitting him with the shoulder strikes. Poirier did return fire with some of those shoulder strikes as well. But Conor did get the better of those strikes. He was landing a lot of knees to the body in the clinch. I would even think Conor won the clinch exchange, even though Poirier did take him down. Conor popped back up. Poirier got him against the fence. Conor even flipped it a couple times where he got Poirier against the fence. But yeah, Conor won that clinch exchange. Back to the boxing. Conor, like we said, was winning the majority of the boxing exchanges. He was definitely outstriking Poirier in the punches. He landed a big right hand at one point around midway, I want to say, through the first round. Conor landed a big right hand and he had Poirier hurt, and I kind of thought he would jump on him a little more, capitalize off of it maybe, like we've seen him do in the past, but he didn't do that. He had Poirier hurt bad around like the midway point of round one, and Poirier looked stunned and it looked like it took him a few seconds there to get his composure back, to get his wits about himself. After Poirier got stung there, it seems like the tide had shifted completely to Poirier's side. Because that's when Poirier started landing those calf kicks even more effectively. And there was one point where Conor McGregor landed, and then Poirier got him, I believe, with a check right hook. And then he pointed at him and he said, like, gotcha, And from that point on, after McGregor had stunned him with that right hand, Poirier lands that check right hook. From that point on, the fight was just completely shifted, and Poirier just started throwing an even higher volume, I believe, of those calf kicks. First round ends, second round starts, and Poirier's throwing more calf kicks again. Conor's landing some strikes in the boxing department again, similar to round one. But Poirier continues, and then there's one that Conor's leg kind of gives in. You could see it. His leg gives in, and he almost falls. Or not falls, but he loses his balance a bit. From that point on, it was over. His leg was, you could tell he could barely walk on it. He could barely move on it, put any weight on it. At that point, that just opened up the boxing for Poirier, and Poirier just let his hands go. Conor was so worried about his leg. You could tell there was a shift in momentum, a clear shift in momentum, even in the striking department, which was the only thing McGregor was being successful at in the fight. There was a shift. And once McGregor's leg went out, Poirier started just unleashing shots on him and then was able to put him away. But it was clearly that leg kick, right? So what does Poirier do in this fight? Does he employ the same strategy? I would think he does. And that just, it begs a question of, what does Conor McGregor do? How is he going to negate the leg kicks in this fight? Is he going to throw more of his own? Is he going to be more mindful of checking them? Another thing, when you throw a calf kick, there's not a lot of meat there, so you're really driving your foot, and you're driving that kick right into the bone. It's rough. So the fact that was happening doesn't help, right? But I think I saw it was Dustin Poirier that said Conor even checked some of them. There's not much meat there, so it didn't matter. But maybe I'm wrong here, but I didn't see McGregor check a lot of those leg kicks. I didn't see McGregor check a lot of those calf kicks, rather. There was one point, I believe it was in the second round, where Poirier threw a calf kick, and McGregor actually he catches his leg as he's throwing the kick, and he lifts it, and he tries to throw him off balance, and he tries to throw a head kick of his own, doesn't land. That was the only one where he actually caught Poirier's foot, on the kick. But other than that, I do not see a moment in the fight where Conor checked many of them. Maybe he did check a couple of them. Maybe he did. He was able to lift his leg for a few of them, take the weight off of it. But from what I remember, Poirier was just landing those flush, and Conor was just eating those with that lead leg just out there, all the weight on it. He's going to have to be mindful of checking those kicks, because I didn't see him check a lot of them. Just the fact that he's so powerful and he's so quick and precise in the boxing that he almost has to start using the leg kicks again like he did in the first fight, because it's going to open up more opportunity for his boxing, right? And when you do that, when you're able to set it up and you're not being as predictable with it, that plus the fact that he's so accurate, precise, powerful, and for a guy like Conor, if he could start opening up a lot of punches, combinations with the kicks, then he's going to put Poirier away. That's what happened in the first fight. He was throwing so many leg kicks, but he was throwing such a variety of different leg kicks in that fight, to the body, to the head, to the calf. That opened up the boxing for him in the first fight. And that's how he was able to knock him out with the boxing. He didn't knock him out with a head kick, or he didn't finish him by kicks in that fight. Even though he was throwing a lot of them, he finished him. And that's something he could do in the trilogy if he could employ the leg kicks again. And it's not like we're looking at McGregor as a guy who, it's been ages since he threw a kick. It's not like Jose Aldo. You look at Aldo in the Uriah Faber fight. Look at Aldo in the Mendes fight. Aldo used to throw so many leg kicks. He used to be so deadly with the leg kicks. Now he just doesn't do it. It's like a forgotten thing about him. That's not the case for Conor. Go to the Khabib fight. Go to the Cowboy fight. He landed a head kick on Cowboy Cerrone, did he not? He threw a flying knee in that fight as well, did he not? In the Khabib fight, he was throwing a lot of teep kicks to the gut. He was throwing leg kicks. He was mixing it up. He was definitely mixing it up with the kicks. Definitely, in those fights, he wasn't mixing it up. Those fights were after the Mayweather fight, right? After he went to go box. So he wasn't mixing it up in the Cowboy and the Khabib fight with the kicks as much as he was in the first Poirier fight. That was in 2014. He threw a lot more kicks in that Poirier fight. But he was still mixing it up at least, which is what I was saying previously, is like, you don't have to be so kick heavy, but at least mix it up, and that's something that I don't think he did in the second Poirier fight, and that's something that he should do in the trilogy. And I think that could really be his path to victory. In the boxing department, do what you do. You're one of the best in the history of the sport at that. But start to throw the leg kicks. Start to throw the kicks to the body. And move more. Like, there was no movement. He was so stiff. He was just standing on that lead leg, the whole fight. He was standing on that right leg, putting so much weight on it. I mean, of course he's standing on the right leg, but I'm saying he had that lead right leg. He had it out so much, and he was just so stiff. In the first fight against Poirier, he was moving around. He was being elusive. It makes you harder to hit. It's harder to start to land so many more of those calf kicks if you're constantly moving around. His movement in the first fight, from the first fight to the second fight, is day and night. It's insane, the difference. He looks like a completely different fighter. The boxing, you could tell, is still there. The boxing actually looks sharper in the second fight. I mean, the first fight was close to. Was quick too, rather. But, yeah, different fighter. The key to McGregor is he's got to stay motivated, because one more thing this is the last thing I want to touch on, is I think a lot of people that are watching from afar, or maybe are just popping their heads in every once in a while on the whole Conor McGregor situation, they say, I hear a lot of people, they say, like, he wasn't motivated, he's got $100 million, this and that. I understand that, and that has been the case in the past. But you have to look at it in depth, and you really have to follow where Conor is at specific moments in time. You can't just look at the man for what he's done in the past. We're different. Every day we change. And Conor, believe it or not, a lot of people may not believe this, for the second Dustin Poirier fight, Conor McGregor was motivated for that fight. He was in good shape for that fight. If you watch the build up to that fight, the press conferences, everything, Conor McGregor was adamant that he was in the best shape he's been. This was the best, that the way he was able to convert his body to the 155-pound frame successfully. He felt amazing. He was saying that he was training in Portugal. He was releasing the pictures. The guy looked fit. I've never seen him look better than he did in that Poirier fight, believe it or not, in the second one. He looked great. Mentally, he seemed like he was there. He was focused. The guy was meditating on his yacht. So I don't think it was the mental. It was just, I believe the reason Conor McGregor lost to Dustin Poirier in their second fight was a mere tactical error. I do not believe it was a motivation factor. So, with that being said, if Conor McGregor in this third fight can stay motivated as he was, as I believe he was, stay in good shape as I believe he was, and just make those slight tactical adjustments, start throwing in the leg kicks, move more like he did in the first fight. I think those are things that are going to be the keys to him winning the fight, and I think he will win the fight. I do believe Conor McGregor is a more skilled fighter than Dustin Poirier. Albeit, I am a McGregor fan. I'll be the first person to admit that, but I'm also a Dustin Poirier fan, and I recognize that he could win the fight. It's going to be very interesting. UFC 264, July 10th. Tune into that. Till next time.